Venus trine my sun today, and Scorpio messaged me again. So that was nice and deep messages and something different. And wow, yeah, it all got me thinking about Venus more and the Venus retrograde cycle. So you might have heard or seen the images of where they are tracking Venus, and it makes a pentacle or a 5-pointed star, a pentacle, a pentagram in the sky. So if you don't know, I do have a thread on IFERS, on Eric's site, ifers.123.st. And there's an astrology post that I started, and it's got like 5,000 comments from me, basically. And I drew this Venus cycle to explain why it makes the pentagram and show it with the points over the AE map. So I used to draw those on the touchscreen laptop, but I jumped on my bed one day and the laptop was on the bed, and then it bounced off and hit the floor and died. Then I got a new hard drive and it worked again for a few months, but then it died again. So I don't draw the charts anymore. But anyway, I did draw that out. So if you are interested more, go check out my thread that I made on IFERS and laugh at me some more there. My name's Mary Moon on IFERS. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the Venus retrograde. So this site, this is Jamie, the astrologyking.com. And yes, he is a globe lover. And you will find a ton of globe stuff on his site. But it's all laughable to me because they are doing geocentric astrology, and there is no astrologer doing heliocentric astrology telling you about yourself. There's no ascendant. The moon isn't there. Nothing is the same. So you cannot use heliocentric astrology for anything. Anything about yourself. It's not the same system at all. Or even events in the sky. It's not accurate. So look it up, test things out, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All of these astrologers who talk about the globe are all doing geocentric astrology that fits perfectly with the AE map, with the azimuthal, equidistant projection. So Jamie is telling us why Venus retrograde is special. It is the most strongly felt. He's saying that because it's the one that goes retrograde for the least amount of time. And that there's a fated period where you may see old lovers, right? Because Venus is going backwards, so past things come up. Now, this guy, this video is very, very old. And it's really boring and data-y. He's a Leo. He's got a Leo party. Nick DeGambest. And he goes over this Venus retrograde periods with a whole bunch of people's charts and events. So it's really good data if you are on the science end of this and proving it sort of thing. So you should really watch this. Force yourself to watch this. Most of the Venus retrogrades that he's talking about, including the people he's talking about, every time he says something, the same things have happened to me in the Venus retrograde. So I'm born right before Venus retrograde in Aries. And sometimes when you do your chart, if you're just getting your chart done by someone else or you're doing it for free, it might not show the little R. For me, for example, it's basically I'm born in a shadow period of Venus where it's slowing down kind of thing. So that is something, if you've had a lot of crazy events in your life, that could be also related, especially with your love life, to Venus being retrograde in your own chart and Venus going retrograde in the current weather. So yeah, if you make it through that, good for you. Now it is a good one if you're weak. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, what's this one? Okay. In 1993, Venus was in Aries and she went retrograde. This was right when this is right by my own Venus, and this is right when my Scorpio boyfriend gave me the 5 hits of acid, and I lost my mind for a few days, a few weeks, forever maybe. and read my first astrology book front to back, which then I immediately could reference all these people because I knew everyone's birthday. I was always a kid that was remembering people's birthdays and people's phone numbers and all these little random details. So my mind was expanded more than ever that day, those days, that fated day where this Scorpio did that. So anyway, we broke up because of that, because of him giving me 5 hits of acid, and I called him ugly when his face was all warping all over the place, and then he left. Then shortly after that, he got together with his ex-girlfriend, who was a Scorpio, so he went off with her. Then I went to Kamloops to stay with one of my cousins, and I was staying with my cousin, and I met this guy, and that was right in this Venus retrograde. I met my son's father. But I was only 16 and he was 19. And we only hung out for a few days. And then I left Kamloops, BC, because I had to. And I wrote him letters. And on the letters, I would draw all my astrology doodles. And so, yeah, he never wrote me back. And I thought, wow, what a jerk, because I actually really liked that guy. And so I didn't see him again. I stopped thinking about him after a while. And then another fateful day here in 1999, right when Venus went retrograde again, I was at the park that summer. I had just left my job because my boss, my Leo boss, told me I was lazy and I'm not allowed to talk to the telemarketers on the floor because I was working in admin. And I would always talk to the telemarketers because they're fun. And so she walked out one day and I was showing one of the telemarketers how to crochet something. And she came out and she's like, I don't pay you to sit around talking to the telemarketers and showing them how to crochet. But, and everyone was looking. She's yelling at me and everyone was looking. So it was humiliating. And so instead of just taking it, I said, really? How about fuck you? I quit. And then I stood up, grabbed my shit off my desk, went into the elevator, went to the corporate floor where we weren't allowed to go. We weren't allowed to go down to that floor because we weren't dressed in corporate dress, right? They didn't make us dress in corporate fucking suits on the floor that I worked on. So I went down to the fancy looking bathroom where they have flowers and everything. And I went in there and I chopped up weed. I just sat in there forever, chopped up weed, rolled a huge fucking joint, put the joint in my mouth, lit it, walked down the hall, reeked up the whole building, walked down the stairwell, walked all the way downtown to the park. And that was the day that I saw this guy again. And I didn't know it was him, and he didn't know I was me. We didn't recognize each other. And so we're staring at each other or whatever. And finally he rides his bike over. He's a BMXer. And he rides his bike over and stops and asks me if I want to go for coffee. And I said, okay. And so we're at this dark little coffee shop and looking at each other, and suddenly we both fucking realize at the same time that who we are, that we've met before. So we're sitting there in this another Venus retrograde, and we both have the same Scorpio moon, so we're both just kind of silent, and he's a Capricorn. So we're really kind of silent together a lot. And anyway, we finally talked about the fact that it was him, and I asked him why he didn't write me back, and he said because I wrote astrology symbols all over the envelope, so he thought I was some kind of creepy witch. So he never wrote me back. That's what he said. And yeah, anyway, in that month following, see, Venus is still retrograde. Venus went direct here. It was right after that, around here, that I got pregnant. And then I had my son in the year 2000. And then, skip forward a bit, this is right when my son's father ripped out handfuls of my hair one night, and I threw a pair of scissors at him, and it just poked his leg a little bit, didn't even really bleed. And he called the police. And when the police got there, I was sitting there with bald spots on my head. My head was actually bleeding. I don't know if you've ever had handfuls of hair ripped out of your head, but it bleeds. And he told the cops that I threw scissors at him. So they charged us both with assault, with domestic violence, assault, whatever. And his charges weren't dropped, but mine were, because they just looked at me and looked at his little cut on his leg. And he said I stabbed him. And I was like, no, I didn't. I threw scissors at you, you pussy. And I didn't care about a lawyer or anything. I didn't even think I was going to get in any trouble, and I didn't. They dropped the charges. They told me I needed to go to anger management. That was Venus retrograde again. That was the Venus retrograde, really close to my moon. And wow, right? So it keeps getting better. It keeps going on and on. So yeah, what a trip. This is going through these dates. So then this year, I was away from him. My son, I had my son back because child welfare apprehended my son for 3 months. So I did everything the kidnapper said until I could get my kid back, and then moved as far as I could away from this fucking crazy guy so I'd stop getting in trouble all the time with the police. And on this day, where Venus is retrograde again, right on Mr. Gem's Gemini party, I met Mr. Gem. And the reason I met Mr. Gem, actually I met him a bit earlier, but he just stared at me all the time. And I would always he worked at the office where I worked. And I worked at the same, I went back to the same office after I got fired, after the Leo boss fired me for telling her to go fuck herself. She rehired me. That's how sweet I am, bitches. Re-fucking hired. So I'm back at work here, and he's staring at me all the time. And all the women in the office are staring at him. And I just like I was looking at him. Why are you staring at me? Fucking stop staring at me. It's annoying. And I gave him the Celestine Prophecy book one day. Specifically because it talks about when you're staring at someone, being sexual to them and they don't want it, invading thing. So I wanted him to read that specifically. And anyway, he didn't stop staring at me. He just stared at me like crazy. And all the women started to realize he was staring at me all day. So then they all started saying, he's staring at you all day. Oh, he's so dreamy. He obviously likes you. Why don't you want to go out with him? But didn't want to go with anyone. I didn't care. All I wanted to do was just hang out with my boy. And I don't know. I met random people, like men all the time would stop and ask me out or whatever. But I only went out with a few of them. And I definitely didn't want to go out with this guy at work, even though he is good looking and sweet and everything. But yeah, by June, right by his birthday, I said, okay, I'll come to your birthday party. So I went to his birthday party, and then I ditched him. I just left. I thought, this is lame, later. And I left. And then I heard later that one of the women from our office was there, and she's an Aries, and she grabbed him and pinned him against the wall and and took off his pants and all this. Oh my God, hilarious. And Gemini party just let her start or whatever, but then stopped her because he said he really liked me and he didn't feel right about it, even though we weren't anything at this point. So I didn't believe him that he did that, and I didn't even care. I didn't want to hear a bullshit story for him, so I went to the Libra girl, or to the Aries girl, because we're friends, and I asked her, Dana, what happened? And then she told me exactly the same thing he told me. She said, oh yeah, I pinned him against the wall, and I pulled down his pants, and I was starting to try to do stuff, but then he made me stop, and he said he liked you. Isn't that cute? And I thought, not really, but okay. And so yeah, that was another Venus retrograde, right on his stuff, right when I met him. And sextile my own Venus. So finally, I don't know, around here maybe July or August, we don't even know our anniversary. We just made it up as September 11th because we don't really remember. But it was 2004, either late summer or fall. And I remember because I needed to go pick all the sage that I found. And so when he was staring at me all day at work that day, and then I said, hey, do you want to come with me and do something today? And he, of course, did. So he said, sure. And I took him in a cab. I got a cab, and then I made the cab pull over on the side of the road by this bridge in the middle of nowhere because I needed to go pick all the sage. So I'm like, get ready to run. We got to pick as much as we can and put it in the trunk before the cab gets mad at us, right? Figures out what we're doing. So he runs out there with me, and we cut down all the sage, and then we come put it in the guy's trunk in a bag, and the whole car reeked like sage. But the cabbie didn't mind, and that was our first thing that I thought, oh, okay, I guess you can be my boyfriend, which is exactly what I told him. I said that. I guess you can be my boyfriend. Because I really don't want a boyfriend, but I really don't want to have just somebody that I'm intimate with. Sometimes I'd rather have a boyfriend, so I guess it's you. And every time that we have had a huge upset, it is exactly the same. I will find a Venus retrograde every friggin' time. So boring data. I don't know if you care about this kind of shit, but that's what proves astrology to me. All these things that he's talking about that have happened to me, and I'm one of the people that he's talking about, because he's going through charts of people who are born in the Venus retrograde and the fucked up shit that happens to them when Venus goes retrograde again. So, in case you're wondering anything about that, look it up. And if you want to know if you're born in the retrograde, look for the little R beside your Venus. And if it's not there and you're wondering, you have to go to the ephemeris, right? So you have to go to the home page of astrology.com or astro.com, astrodites.com. Go to the home page. And then you need to scroll down and go to this friendly 9,000 year ephemeris. And then just scroll down here and find the years that you need. So you're looking in the 1900s or the 2000s. And find your birthday year. So we'll look at mine so I can show you what I mean. So my birthday's March 10th. And you can see I came out here with Venus 23 degree Aries. And then Venus went retrograde. Not even 2 weeks, a week. Did I say 2 weeks? Would you look at that? 5 days after I was born, Venus went retrograde. So even though on my chart it doesn't show that I'm a Venus Aries retrograde person, I'm basically a Venus Aries retrograde person. And the reason I even looked that up in the first place is because I listened to this long, boring interview as soon as it came out, because I used to love Kelly Lee Phipps. He passed away now. But I used to listen to all his videos. So then I found Nick through Kelly right when this video came out. And I was listening to him talk about Venus Aries and the retrograde, and I thought, what? All that shit's happened to me. What the heck? And that's when I looked it up and realized I'm basically a Venus retrograder. And you might be one too. So if you're not sure, just email me a date if you need me to look it up. I'll look that up for you.